the 21st century, global power is no longer controlled only by armies, missiles, or fighter jets. Today, power is also controlled through money, banking systems, oil trade, sanctions, and the currencies that dominate the global economy. And for decades, the United States built a financial system where the US dollar became the center of global trade, especially oil trade. If a country wanted to buy oil from the Middle East, it usually needed dollars first. That forced countries around the world to hold massive dollar reserves and remain connected to American-controlled financial networks. And this is where systems like SWIFT became extremely important. SWIFT is the international banking system that allows banks across countries to communicate and process transactions. Although it appears neutral, America's influence over the global financial system turned SWIFT into one of Washington's strongest geopolitical tools. And if the United States imposed sanctions on a country and restricted access to SWIFT, that country could suddenly struggle to sell oil, process payments, or conduct international trade. Countries like Iran experienced this directly. Later, Russia faced similar pressure after Western sanctions intensified. And this changed the thinking of many nations around the world because countries realized something dangerous. Well, if one nation controls the global financial system, it also controls enormous global influence. Well, let us shed light on the America and the dollar dominance. For America, the dollar is not just an economic tool, it is a strategic weapon. And as long as global oil is traded mainly in dollars, countries everywhere must continue using the American financial system. And that creates constant demand for the dollar and gives Washington a major leverage over trade, banking, and sanctions. And this is why the United States carefully protects the dollar's position as the world's dominant reserve currency. Because the dollar does not only support the American economy, and it supports American global influence. Sanctions become stronger, trade restrictions become more effective, and financial pressure becomes a weapon without firing a missile. And over the times, many countries begin asking the same question. What happens if America uses the financial system against us? Now let us shed light on India's quiet strategy. In the early 2000s, while the world remained heavily dependent on the dollar system, India quietly started exploring alternatives. And during the leadership of former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, India began focusing more seriously on financial independence and strategic autonomy. India was not only openly challenging America, but it also did not want complete dependence on any single global power. And at the time, India's economy and energy demands were growing rapidly. And since India imports a huge amount of oil, any disruption in global payments or oil trade could seriously damage the economy. So India started exploring rupee-based trade settlements, bilateral payment agreements, and local currency transactions that could reduce dependence on the dollar system. Well, the idea was simple, that if global politics became unstable, India needed backup options. Well, now let us shed light on the rise of BRICS and alternative systems. Around the same period, another major shift was beginning, the rise of BRICS. BRICS started as a group of emerging economies but gradually became a platform for countries seeking greater influence outside Western-dominated institutions. And all these nations shared one major concern, that is the global financial system was heavily dominated by America and the West. And as BRICS expanded, discussions moved beyond trade and development. Leaders started talking about local currency trade, alternative payment systems, and reducing dependence on Western-controlled financial networks. And this eventually led to the projects like the New Development Bank. And at the same time, China was building CIPS, that is an alternative payment system that is designed to reduce reliance on SWIFT and the US dollar network. Meanwhile, Russia accelerated efforts to trade outside the dollar after facing sanctions. And slowly, a new financial competition began emerging. And on one side stood the American-led dollar system, and on the other side were countries that were searching for greater financial independence. And somewhere in the middle stood India. But why did the Strait of Hormuz matter? The Strait of Hormuz is one of the world's most critical oil routes, with nearly 1/5 of global oil passing through this narrow waterway near Iran. It is a key lifeline for energy importing countries like India, China, Japan, and much of Asia. Well, there is no official toll for passing through the strait, but ships face heavy indirect costs such as insurance, shipping charges, security expenses, fuel surcharges, and port handling fees. And all these costs rise sharply during tensions between the US and Iran, sometimes adding millions of dollars to global trade. Historically, most oil trade through this route has been conducted in US dollars, requiring countries to maintain dollar reserve. However, some nations have started exploring alternatives. India has tested rupee-based settlements, China promotes trade in yuan, and Russia and BRICS nations are pushing for local currency trade systems. Because of this, any instability in the Strait of Hormuz is not just about oil supply. It also impacts global shipping costs, currency systems, and overall economic stability worldwide. So the real story behind the Strait of Hormuz crisis is much bigger than just tensions between America and Iran. It is about oil, it is about sanctions, it is about SWIFT, it is about BRICS, and it is about the global struggle over who controls the future of money itself. Because in today's world, military power alone is not enough. The country that controls finance, controls influence, and the countries building alternatives to the dollar system are trying to reshape the global order itself. That's all for now. Stay tuned to the Savera for more updates. Do like, comment, and subscribe to the channel.